Your nan's freezer was a treasure chest, and most of us never realized it. While we throw away food worth hundreds of pounds a year, the generation that lived through rationing knew a secret. Almost anything can be frozen if you know how. Number 9 on this list will change the way you do Christmas forever, and number 2 could save the average British household nearly £60 a month on the shopping. Food companies would rather you trekked to Tesco every single week, but pensioners across Britain have been quietly beating the system for decades. Before we start, hit that subscribe button, because by the end of this, you will never look at your freezer the same way again. Let us count down the 25 surprising British foods you never knew you could freeze. Number 25. Mushrooms. Everyone says mushrooms turn to mush in the freezer, and raw ones do. But your nan never froze them raw. She would slice that punnet of chestnut mushrooms going slimy at the back of the fridge, throw them dry into a hot pan with no oil, and let them sweat out their water for 5 minutes until they shrank to half the size. Then she cooled them, bagged them flat, and froze them in portions. The trick is cooking out the moisture first, so the ice crystals have nothing to wreck. A 250-gram pack costs around £1 now, and most of us bin half of it. Frozen this way, they drop straight from the bag into a Sunday fry-up, a stroganoff, or a pasta sauce with no defrosting at all. Better texture than the tinned ones, and a fraction of the price. A whole carrier bag of mushrooms from the market at the end of the day, sold off cheap because they would not last till morning, became a month of fry-ups and sauces this way. That is exactly the kind of bargain the supermarket relies on you walking straight past. Number 24. Chopped onions. This one horrifies people, but it works. Peel and dice a whole net of onions when they are cheap, 20 pence or so. Spread them on a tray to open freeze for an hour, then tip them loose into a bag. No more crying over the chopping board on a Tuesday night when you are tired. No more throwing out a half onion that went papery in the fridge drawer. They go straight from frozen into the hot pan. And because the cell walls have already burst from freezing, they actually caramelize faster than fresh. The only rule your nan would tell you is to keep the bag well sealed, or your whole freezer ends up smelling of onion. Wrap it twice. She kept a margarine tub of them ready at all times. Number 23. Fresh herbs. That bag of parsley or coriander always rots before you use a third of it, and at over £1 a bunch that is money straight in the bin. Pensioners had a far cleverer way. Chop the herbs finely, pack them into an ice cube tray, cover with a little olive oil or water, and freeze. Each cube is a ready portion that drops into a soup, a stew, or a bolognese mid-cook. Soft herbs like basil and chives go in oil. Hardy ones like rosemary and thyme can simply be frozen whole on the stalk and crumbled in frozen, where they shatter into perfect little flecks. The color fades a touch, but the flavor holds beautifully for months. A windfall of garden mint in July becomes mint sauce for the lamb at Christmas. Number 22. Tomatoes. Here is one that genuinely surprises everyone. You can freeze tomatoes whole. No blanching, no skinning, no chopping. When your trust tomatoes are going soft and wrinkly, just bung them straight into a freezer bag as they are. They go rock hard. The magic happens when you defrost them, because the skins slide off in your fingers like a glove, no scalding water needed. They turn watery and soft, useless for a salad, but perfect for everything they are actually wanted for. A rich soup, a passata, a curry base, a slow Sunday ragu. 6 tomatoes for £1 that would otherwise have ended up in the food caddy now become the foundation of a proper sauce. Your nan grew them in the greenhouse and never let a single one go to waste this way. Number 21. Cooked pulses. First pattern break. Here is where it gets clever. A tin of butter beans or chickpeas costs 4 times what the dried ones do, and the dried ones taste better. The catch is the long soak and simmer, which nobody can be bothered with on a weeknight. So pensioners cooked a whole bag at once, the way they had during rationing when dried pulses were the cheap protein that kept a family going. Once the beans were soft, your nan cooled them, divided them into tin-sized portions, and froze them in their cooking liquor so they did not dry out. They thaw in minutes and slip into a stew, a curry, or a salad exactly like the tinned ones for pennies. One bag, cooked once, replaces a dozen tins. That is the rationing mindset working in a modern kitchen. Number 20. Hummus. People swear blind hummus cannot be frozen, but it can, and a pensioner watching every penny will tell you so. The supermarket tubs are nearly all on the reduced shelf by Sunday evening, half price with the yellow sticker. Grab 3, take them home, and freeze them straight in the tub. The texture splits a little on thawing and the oil separates, but a vigorous stir with a splash of olive oil or a teaspoon of water brings it right back to smooth and creamy. Homemade hummus freezes even better. The whole point your nan understood was that the reduced shelf at closing time is a goldmine, and the freezer is what lets you raid it. Never pay full price for something the shop is desperate to sell you cheap at 8 o'clock. Number 19. Leftover wine. Nobody in your nan's house drank fancy wine, but if a drop was left in the bottle from a Sunday lunch, it never went down the sink. She poured it into an ice cube tray and froze it. A splash of red lifts a gravy, a beef stew, or a bolognese. White does the same for a risotto or a creamy chicken dish. Each cube is roughly a tablespoon, so you can pop in exactly what a recipe asks for without opening a whole fresh bottle that then sits going to vinegar in the larder. It is the same instinct that saved every scrap of dripping and every heel of bread. Waste nothing and let the cold do the keeping. A bottle that would have been tipped away becomes months of richer cooking. Number 18. Citrus. When lemons or limes are going soft in the fruit bowl, the worst thing you can do is throw them out. Your nan would zest them first, freezing the zest in a little tub, then squeeze the juice into an ice cube tray. Citrus zest loses its punch fast at room temperature, but holds for months frozen, and it goes straight into a cake batter, a marinade, or overfish. The juice cubes drop into a gravy, a dressing, or a glass of water on a hot day. A bag of lemons reduced to 30 pence becomes a year of zest and juice for almost nothing. It was the same logic she applied to a glut of anything from the market. Buy cheap when it is going, and lock the freshness away in the cold. Number 17. Bacon. This seems obvious until you realize most people freeze a whole pack in one solid brick, then can only use the lot at once. Pensioners were smarter. Your nan would lay the rashers out individually between sheets of grease-proof paper, roll the whole thing up and freeze it. You could then peel off 1 or 2 rashers at a time, exactly as many as you needed for a sandwich or to flavor a soup, and the rest stayed frozen. Bacon offcuts and the cheap cooking bacon from the butcher were bought in bulk when reduced and stored this way for weeks. A single rasher chopped into a cabbage soup or a pot of lentils gave the whole dish a smoky depth for next to nothing. Nothing was bought in a panic, and nothing was wasted. The smell of a single frozen rasher hitting a hot pan on a Sunday morning was the smell of a kitchen that knew exactly what it was doing, and a shopping bill that stayed low all year round. Number 16. Crumpets. A pack of crumpets goes stale and moldy within days on the counter, which is daft when they freeze perfectly. Your nan kept hers in the freezer the moment she got them home. They do not even need defrosting. Straight from frozen, they go under the grill or in the toaster, perhaps a few seconds longer than fresh, and come out exactly as they should, crisp on the outside and soft enough inside to drown in butter that pools in the holes. The same goes for muffins, pikelets, and tea cakes. Buy them on offer, 3 packs for the price of 2, and freeze the lot. There is something deeply British about a crumpet toasted on a cold afternoon, and the freezer means you are never more than 2 minutes from one, all winter long. Number 15. Sliced bread. We all know bread can be frozen, but most people do it wrong. They freeze a whole loaf and then have to thaw the entire thing to get one slice. Your nan froze it flat in its bag, then took out slices as she needed them, toasting them straight from frozen with no waiting. A loaf the bakers sold for pennies was never, ever wasted in her kitchen, and the same applies to the reduced shelf loaves today at 30 pence. The real secret most have forgotten is that even crusts and stale ends go in a separate bag, ready to be blitzed into breadcrumbs for a crumble topping, a meatloaf, or a fish pie. That refusal to bin a single slice is the exact thrift that ran the post-war kitchen on a quarter of what we spend. Number 14. Cooked rice, second pattern break. Now here is one the food safety scaremongers got wrong for a generation. People are terrified of leftover rice, but pensioners froze it routinely and never came to harm. The key is speed. Your nan would spread the cooked rice out thin to cool it quickly within an hour, never leaving it sitting warm on the side, then bag it flat and freeze it the same day. Reheated piping hot, straight from frozen in a pan or microwave, it is perfectly safe and saves boiling a fresh pot every night. A bag of rice cooked on Sunday becomes 5 weeknight portions ready in 3 minutes. The expensive microwave pouches in the supermarket are nothing but cooked rice someone has frozen for you, sold back at 10 times the price. Do it yourself and pocket the difference. Number 13. Mashed potato. This shocks people, but mash freezes beautifully if it is made properly. The trick your nan knew was to make it a little richer than usual, with plenty of butter and milk, because the fat protects the texture through freezing. She would pipe or spoon it into portions, open freeze them on a tray, then bag them. Frozen mash reheats in the oven or microwave straight from the freezer, and it makes the perfect topping for a shepherd's pie built in advance. When potatoes were cheap by the sack, she cooked far more than the family could eat in one sitting. Precisely so, the surplus could be locked away. A roast on Sunday quietly became a cottage pie the following Wednesday, with no extra peeling, no extra washing up, and no waste. Number 12. Short crust pastry. Why buy a fresh block of pastry every time when you can make a big batch and freeze it? Your nan rubbed her flour and fat together by the pound, exactly as she had learnt during the war when nothing was bought ready-made, then wrapped it in portions and froze it raw. It thaws in the fridge, ready to roll. Even better, she would line her pie and tart tins, then freeze the pastry already in the dish, so a quiche or a fruit tart could go from freezer to oven on a whim. Blind-baked cases freeze too, crisp and ready to fill. A homemade batch costs a fraction of the chilled rolls, and once you have a stack of pastry in the freezer, a proper pie is never more than half an hour away. Number 11. Soup. Soup is the freezer's best friend, and the post-war kitchen ran on it. Your nan made an enormous pot from a ham bone, a few leeks, and whatever was tired in the vegetable rack, then froze it in single portions. The only thing to remember is that potato and pasta can go grainy when frozen, so she added those fresh on reheating and froze just the base. A pan of soup that cost almost nothing fed the family for a fortnight, defrosted one bowl at a time for a quick lunch, freeze it flat in bags and a portion thaws in minutes under a warm tap. That same pea and ham soup that simmered in the mining villages can now sit in your freezer in neat little parcels, ready whenever the cold sets in. A pot made on a quiet Sunday, when you had the time and the patience, kept you fed all week without a single trip to the shop. That was the whole point of it. Number 10. Gravy. Throwing away leftover gravy is a small tragedy your nan would never have allowed. The juices from the Sunday roast, thickened and seasoned, went into an ice cube tray and froze into rich amber blocks. A couple of cubes melted into a midweek dinner gives instant depth that no granules from a tub can match. She did the same with the last of a stew or a casserole, freezing the gravy separately so it could lift a plain plate of sausage and mash on a busy night. The flavor built up over a slow Sunday simmer is far too precious to pour down the drain. Locked away in the cold, it waits to make a dull Tuesday taste like a proper roast dinner, and it costs nothing but the few minutes it takes to fill a tray. Number 9. Yorkshire puddings. Here is the Christmas game changer. You can freeze Yorkshire puddings, and they reheat better than they have any right to. Your nan would make a big batch when she had the oven hot and the batter mixed, let them cool completely, then bag and freeze them. Straight from frozen into a hot oven for a few minutes, they crisp up tall and golden, indistinguishable from fresh. This is the secret to a calm Christmas dinner. Because the one thing that always goes wrong at the last minute, those puddings collapsing or burning while you juggle everything else, is done weeks in advance. The same goes for roast potatoes, parboiled, roughed up, and frozen, ready to finish in hot fat. A pensioner running a Boxing Day spread for 14 swears by this, and so will you. Number 8. Mince pies and Christmas cake. Speaking of Christmas, the festive bakes freeze for months, which is why your nan started in October. Mince pies freeze raw in their tins, ready to bake fresh and warm whenever guests appear, or baked and frozen to reheat in minutes. Christmas cake actually improves frozen and fed, and the rich fruit and marzipan hold beautifully. She would bake when the dried fruit was cheap and the kitchen was already warm from other jobs, then tuck it all away. By the time December arrived, the hard work was long done, the freezer was full, and she could enjoy the season instead of slaving over it. That forward planning, buying and baking when it was cheapest and freezing against the rush, is the quiet genius behind every relaxed pensioner at Christmas. Number 7. Victoria sponge. A whole cake freezes wonderfully, and so do individual slices. Your nan would bake 2 sponges while the oven was on, ice and eat one, and freeze the other plain to fill later. Cake freezes best uniced, wrapped well, and thaws on the counter in an hour or two, still moist and tender. Slices freeze individually for a lunchbox treat or an unexpected visitor, so there was always something to put on a plate with a cup of tea when someone dropped in. Buttercream freezes fine too. The point she understood is that baking is a faff to set up, but no more effort to do double, so you always made 2 and banked 1. A homemade sponge in the freezer meant nobody ever had to rush to the shop for a packet cake. Number 6. Double cream. Cream that is about to turn need not be wasted, though there is a trick to it. Single cream splits and curdles when frozen, but double cream and whipping cream hold up because of the higher fat. Your nan would either freeze it in an ice cube tray to drop into sauces and soups later, or, cleverer still, whip it first with a little sugar, pipe it into rosettes on a tray, freeze them solid, and bag them. Each frozen swirl could be lifted straight onto a trifle or a pudding, where it thawed in minutes looking freshly piped. A pot of cream nearing its date, reduced to pennies, became weeks of finishing touches. It is the same instinct that whipped evaporated milk into pretend cream during rationing, never letting good dairy go to waste. Number 5. Butter. Third pattern break. This is the one pensioners are most smug about. Butter freezes for up to a year with no change whatsoever, which means when it drops to half price, you stock up. Your nan bought it by the armful on offer and filled the freezer, knowing the price only ever climbs. It thaws on the counter in an hour or grates straight from frozen into pastry for the lightest rub-in you have ever managed. She did the same with hard cheese, lard and sweet. The whole strategy is to buy when it is cheap and never when you are desperate, because the desperate shopper always pays full price. A freezer full of half-price butter is money in the bank, and the supermarket cannot make you pay more for the privilege of planning ahead. Number 4. Cheese. Hard cheese freezes brilliantly if you do it the way the pensioners do, which is grated, not in a block. A block freezes crumbly and useless for slicing, but grated cheddar freezes loose and perfect, dropping straight from the bag onto a jacket potato, into a cheese sauce, or over a bake while still frozen. Your nan grated up the end of every block before it could go hard and sweaty in the fridge, and froze it ready for cooking. When the big mature blocks were on multi-buy, she grated the lot. The bagged pre-grated cheese in the chiller is exactly this, sold at a premium with anti-caking flour you do not need. Buy the block on offer, grate it yourself, freeze it, and you have the same convenience for a great deal less money. She kept a big bag of mixed grated cheese on the go at all times, the ends of cheddar and red Leicester and whatever else needed using, all tumbled together and ready for the next cauliflower cheese or macaroni bake. Number 3. Bananas. When the fruit bowl turns to a heap of brown, speckled bananas nobody will eat, most of us bin them. Your nan never did. She peeled them, because frozen bananas in their skins turn to an unpeelable black mess, then froze them in chunks or whole in a bag. Frozen banana is the secret to a thick, creamy smoothie. Blends into an ice cream that needs nothing else, and mashes straight into a banana loaf without thawing. Overripe is exactly what banana bread wants, so the sorrier they look, the better they bake. A bunch reduced to 20 pence on the wonky shelf becomes a freezer full of baking and breakfasts. It is the purest expression of the whole philosophy on this list. The food everyone else throws away is the food a clever cook saves. Number 2. Milk. This is the big money saver, and it stuns people. You can freeze milk. Your nan poured a little out of a full bottle to leave room for expansion, then put the whole thing in the freezer. It thaws in the fridge overnight, and a good shake brings it back together if it looks separated. Perfectly fine for tea, cooking, and cereal. When milk was on offer, 4 pints for £1, she bought double and froze it, never running out and never making an emergency trip to the corner shop at the higher price. For anyone living alone or far from the shops, this is the trick that pays for the freezer itself. The household that freezes milk on offer, rather than buying it fresh at full price every few days, quietly saves a small fortune across a year. Number 1. Eggs, and the one almost nobody believes until they try it. You can freeze eggs. Not in the shell, which cracks, but cracked into a tub, lightly beaten and frozen, ready to thaw for scrambling, baking, or an omelette. Even cleverer, your nan froze whites and yolks separately in ice cube trays, 1 egg per cube, with a pinch of salt or sugar in the yolks to stop them going gluey. A recipe needing 3 whites? Pop out 3 white cubes. Egg whites freeze perfectly for meringues and last for months. When the hens were laying hard in spring or eggs were cheap and plentiful, she banked them against the leaner weeks. It is the rationing mind at its sharpest. Take the glut, lock it in the cold, and never go short. Your nan knew. Now you know too. Try just one of these this week. Freeze the bananas, batch the gravy, or stock up on half-price butter. Then tell me in the comments which one surprised you most, because I want to know if anyone else's nan was quietly beating the supermarket all along.